Look, I'm not saying Katy Perry unalived a nun, but you gotta hear this story. So this is Katy Perry, the pop star. You know Katy Perry. And one day in 2014, Katy decides to take some of that pop star money and buy herself a big-ass mansion in Los Angeles. So she looks around and she finds one for sale. This monstrosity. Now, Katy apparently really wants this house. Like, she'll do anything for it. Maybe even unalive someone. I'm not saying she unalived someone, but just listen to this story. So here's the thing about this house. It is huge. 30,000 square feet. It's even got a pool shaped like a frickin' fish. In fact, this house is so big that it's actually not a house at all. Traditionally, it's been a convent where a bunch of elderly nuns live. And we'll get back to these nuns. But first, we gotta talk about Catholic priests, specifically ones who diddle boys. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, abuse in the Catholic Church as a whole was rampant for decades, particularly in the Archdiocese in Los Angeles. And an archdiocese is sort of like a collection of churches. So this collection of churches in Los Angeles had some pretty serious schmactual abuse accusations thrown at them in the early 90s and 2000s. And one day, boom, they get sued. And so in 2007, the Archdiocese agrees to settle with the victims of the abuse and pay them a settlement of $660 million. And so now these churches need to pay off this huge molestation settlement, so they decide to make some money by selling a property they own. That property? The convent. However, there's a problem. Those elderly nuns I mentioned, they live there. And now these nuns, we'll just call them the nuns. There's only 5 of them, but they've been living there for decades. But the Archdiocese is like, whatever bitches, we own this place. And in 2011, boom, they kick them all out. And this kicks off a whole dispute. Because see, the nuns feel like they own the property. Because back in 1971, they originally pooled all of their money together and purchased it themselves, using every dollar they had saved. However, for some reason, the Archdiocese feels like the property belongs to them. And because they feel like it belongs to them, they're like, F you, we're selling it. And that is when in 2014, along comes Katy Perry, looking to take some of her pop star money and buy herself a big-ass mansion. And she sees this convent and she loves it. She'll do anything to get it. She wants to turn it into a house. So she offers $14.5 million. And the Archdiocese, they accept, like immediately. They don't ask the nuns permission or anything. They just agree and the deal starts moving forward. And so, of course, the nuns are pissed. I mean, they've lived there for decades and the church is just going to come along and sell it out from under them? And to make it even worse, the nuns look Katy Perry up. I mean, they don't know who she is. They're nuns. And let's just say they are not super impressed with her work. Because, she has songs like I Kissed a Girl and You're So Gay. But specifically, in one interview back in the day, Katy Perry made a joke about selling her soul to the devil.
But it didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
And so the nuns, they can't let this slide. I mean, they can't allow their old home to be occupied by someone who sold their soul to the devil. Meanwhile, the Archdiocese, to their credit, they don't want the nuns to be upset. They want all of this to go down smoothly. And so they arrange a meeting at the property between the nuns and Katy Perry. And so one day in 2015, Katy Perry shows up to the place and she's trying to charm these nuns, insisting that she didn't really literally sell her soul to the devil, that she's actually a rather religious person herself. And in Katy Perry's defense, she did grow up in an extremely Christian household. Like, both of her parents were Pentecostal pastors. They were only allowed to listen to gospel music. Her parents were so extreme Christian, she wasn't allowed to refer to deviled eggs as deviled eggs. She had to call them angeled eggs. And I'm not making that up. And so Katy explains this to these nuns. Then she shows them the Jesus tattoo that she has on her wrist. And I'm not sure how impressed nuns generally are with tattoos, but whatever, she showed them. Then, in order to further convince them of how super Christian she is, she offers to sing Oh Happy Day, a well-known church song, and she's going to sing it a cappella. but she has to pull out her phone to look up the lyrics, which has the nuns giving her the side eye. Anyway, it's a super awkward meeting, and the nuns aren't impressed, and their minds aren't changed one bit. However, the Catholic Church is very powerful, and they are determined to sell this property to Katy. And unfortunately, there isn't much the nuns can do. Until at some point, the nuns decide two can play at this game. I mean, they feel like they own the property fair and square. And so they come up with a plan to sell it themselves. And that is when this woman steps in. Her name's Hollister. And Hollister's 54, she's a rich businesswoman, she owns a lot of restaurants, and she comes along and offers to buy the place from the nuns and keep it open and running by turning it into a boutique hotel. And I guess the nuns are cool with that because they agree to sell it behind the Archdiocese back. So now you have two competing sales of the same property happening at the same time. But whatever, the nuns, they hand over the deed to Hollister and she moves in right away. And Katy Perry, Katy Perry is not going to let this slide. She feels like her purchase of the place was already in motion and legal. So she's like, oh, hell no. And she files a lawsuit. But not against the nuns, because that would be terrible PR. Like, Katy Perry sues a bunch of elderly nuns. No, rather, she sues Hollister, claiming that her purchase of the place is not legit. And this turns into an all-out legal war. I mean, two wealthy women battling it out in court over this former nun convent. And this legal battle goes on for years. And I'm sure it's very stressful for all of them, especially the 80-year-old nuns involved. But in 2017, they finally go to trial. And at the end of it all, a judge rules that the nuns, for some legal reason, do need permission from the Vatican in order to sell the convent. Which means Hollister's purchase of the property is invalid. Which means Katy can move forward with buying the house from the Archdiocese. She won. And to make it worse for Hollister, right after that, a jury finds that she's also guilty of malice and fraud in her attempt to interfere with the sale of this property. So now she's ordered to pay Katy Perry and the church $10 million in damages. And that is a lot of money. In fact, it's so much money that it literally bankrupts Hollister. Like she has to go to bankruptcy court. And so then, one day in 2018, she goes to bankruptcy court. And two of the nuns go with her because they're all like friends now. I mean, they've been in this lawsuit together for a long time, and they're there to support their friend. And then on the steps of the courthouse, one of the nuns speaks to the news media, and she pleads for Katy Perry to stop with all the legal actions against her friend.
Please stop. It's not doing anyone any good except hurting a lot of people.
And sadly, those words would be this nun's last words. Because hours later, in the courtroom, she collapses and dies from a heart attack. She was 89 years old. And one of the other nuns claims the heart attack was caused by stress directly related to this Katy Perry lawsuit. I'm not saying Katy Perry unalived a nun, I'm just saying this other nun thinks so. Anyway, at the end of it all, Katy still needs approval from the Vatican to purchase the property. And they're unable to work out a deal. And so her option to buy the place expires and everyone just kind of moves on. So, in the end, after all that, no one got the property. Wow.